happy. If everybody else is happy.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. Have you started now?
Yes, I have, Chair.
Yeah. So we'll if everybody can just mute their mics and we'll start, just to make it a bit easier. We want to welcome you all to this meeting of the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board. I'm Councillor Luke Giles and I'll be chairing this meeting this evening. In accordance with the 2020 coronavirus regulation, this meeting will be held virtually to facilitate attendance and enable important matters to be discussed during the COVID-19 situation. This meeting will therefore operate different to other meetings where members of the board will be joining us virtually and will be able to vote on matters. I will ask all attendees to mute their mics unless you are speaking, then obviously unmute them. Any IT problems, any issues, please contact James and we will see whether we can sort them out during the meeting. Depending on the device that you've logged in on, if you could push your hand up or comment in the taskbar at the bottom if you wish to raise any questions. I've done that. If you wish to speak during the meeting, the chair, myself or the facilitator will indicate when you can speak. When finished, please remember to mute your microphone. Following any questions, any debate or any other to make any decisions on any items, we will ask all members whether they are for or against or whether they abstain. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed online and members of the public, the press, are also by law allowed to film, audio, record, take photos, blog or tweet during this meeting. I would like to invite the scrutiny members to introduce themselves. Elaine, would you like to go first?
Councillor Elaine Giles.
Rajbir, would you like?
Councillor Rajbir Singh, Chair of Children's Services and Education Scrutiny Board.
Thank you for that. I would also like to introduce Alex Goddard, James Sandy from Democratic Services, who will be supporting us during this meeting. Thank you very much for attending, people. Right, we'll start with the meeting. Item number 1, apologies for absence. I've received one apology, and that's Councillor Paul Moore. He's obviously unwell at the moment, so from the board, I'd like to send a message to get well soon. Item number 2, the minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of February 2020 are presented. Are they accepted? Elaine and Rajbir, if you could just accept them, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we might have some audio problems with Councillor Elaine Giles, but I think that was a yes from Elaine. Item number 3, members to declare any interests in matters to be discussed in today's meeting. Does any member have any thing to declare or any party political whip to declare?
No.
No. Okay. Item number 4, any items of business, any other items of business. There is no urgent items of business for today's meeting, but I would like to, if possible, whether Rajbir and Elaine would agree with this, that there's a news paper article about the hole in the budget, and I wish to do a meeting in about 2 weeks' time to obviously have a look at that and to discuss whether there is a problem and whether we can look into that matter. Are you both in agreement with that?
I agree.
I
Rachel?
agree.
Yeah. Is that okay if we can note that, Alex, and we can obviously arrange that for in 2 weeks' time, possibly? Gives us enough time to get everything ready.
Yes.
And
I'll get
thank
that
you
in
for
hand,
that.
Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Also, just another item is the Leisure Trust. Obviously, there's some stuff out there at the moment about that. I wish to have an item on the agenda at the same meeting to discuss whether that's financially going to affect the council. Are you both in agreement with that as well, please?
Yes, fine. Chair.
I agree.
Yep. Is that okay with yourself to add that onto there, Alex?
Noted. I'll take that away, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 5, the COVID-19 reset and recovery planning. I'd like to introduce Neil Coxon, who's going to present the report today. Over to you, Neil.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Okay, so just want to talk you through the report that's been provided to Scrutiny Board. So we've given you a high-level report asking you to consider the overall reset and recovery framework that we put forward to Emergency Committee. Particularly, we'd welcome feedback on the governance framework, the communications and engagement framework, which is key because of the national guidance on the matter, which has been produced and pays particular focus to members being involved in understanding the impact on communities and also the development of the recovery plan. And then finally, we'd welcome suggestions Scrutiny may have about how they're involved and engaged with the recovery process moving forward. So within the report, the background section provides a high-level overview of the Emergency Committee report, which set out the overall framework for reset and recovery planning. What was proposed within the report was that we took a phased approach. So currently, we're moving from the response phase of the crisis to the recovery phase, with the first element being how we deliver our post-crisis immediate response. So to provide a bit more detail on the activities we've got going on at the moment, we're currently working on how we move out of lockdown safely by looking at how services can restart and how the ones that need to can return to a building's base, whilst obviously making sure that our staff and service users are as safe as possible before implementing any of those changes. We're also looking at where we've put response activity in place and where we can either reduce or switch off that activity because it's either no longer needed or because we've got alternative arrangements in place or have moved it potentially to a business as usual type arrangement. Obviously, what we recognise is that in doing this, we need to be flexible because of the increased or the potential for an increase in the infection rate or of any future form of lockdown that may require that response activity to be upscaled, or any of our recovery activity that we put in place to take a step back. We also need to understand the overall impact on our finances, our staff transformation programmes, the impact on our communities and our economy, so that we can understand the different ways in which our pre-pandemic plans need to change. We also need to learn the lessons from the last 12 weeks or so and understand what has worked well and how we can transfer this into our day-to-day work. So an example of this is that we've demonstrated we can work flexibly and remotely and learn a lot about technology and more about the opportunities technology can offer us to make our services more resilient in the future. And once we understand where we've done well, these lessons can be learned and shared across the organisation, and we can embed them into our plans and our future ways of working. Once we've understood the impact as best as possible, recognising that obviously the full impact of COVID-19 and the changes and things that we've experienced recently is not going to be fully felt for some time, our focus will be about reviewing and directing our activity to respond to that impact for both the organisation and the communities that we serve. The circumstances we find ourselves in has given us a lot of opportunity to change the way we work, so we need to maximise those opportunities for transformation so that we're able to support the borough's residents as effectively as possible in the years to come. And then moving towards the end of the year, we need to look at developing detailed business plans which link to our corporate plan, enabling us to live within our means and deliver the services that we need to. I think in terms of governance, there's a lot of detail in the emergency committee report about the governance structure. But the key meeting we have at officer level is the Reset and Recovery Board. So this is chaired by the Chief Exec and is attended by directors to give them an oversight of all the reset and recovery activity that's taking place and ensure that our decisions are transparent, that they're logged, and that we take a one council, one team approach that we talk about within the corporate plan, which is really about making sure that when we take certain decisions, we understand what the impact is on the whole of the organisation and not just the individual parts. We've developed a comms and engagement plan, and we would particularly welcome Scrutiny looking into identifying where they believe they need to feed their views in and how we can maintain good positive engagement throughout the process of developing these plans. And also how the wider group of members are engaged, so that everybody's familiar with the corporate plan and the priorities that are driving our reset and recovery work, as well as understanding how we're going to get from here to having plans in place for our recovery, whilst making sure that everybody's part of that journey. What we've proposed is, in addition to getting general feedback, is that we have a specific focus on the governance framework and getting that insight and intelligence across the organisation. So how do we best engage with Scrutiny? How do we best engage with our communities and those other members, so we're having conversations in the right place at the right time to make sure we inform our planning appropriately. I guess what we'd also like to understand is how Scrutiny as a whole and the different committees would like to be involved in the different elements of reset and recovery, because obviously this is going to cover everything, all of our business. So we need to understand how you want to achieve a coordinated view of the work going on. And I don't know whether this is helpful or not on this, but the Centre of Public Scrutiny have suggested that the scrutiny looks at some particular themes. So what they put forward was finance, health and social care within communities as well. So I'd really welcome your suggestions about what you want to look at and how you'd like to feed into that overall work programme as well. And that's really what we outline in the report, Chair.
Thank you for that, Neil. Elaine and Rajbir, have you got any questions? I'll go to Rajbir first, if that's okay with you, Elaine, as he's on the top right screen. Rajbir, have you got any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Neil, I think the plan is very robust and it is very up to date. So that's exactly what we need, is like to focus all of our resources on reset and recovery and move them accordingly, because this is something new. So we're learning every day how to approach in a new way. So I think it's very important that we approach very flexibly and adjust our resources as they are needed along the path. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Rajbir. If you can mute your microphone. I'll bring in Elaine now. Have you got any questions or comments, Elaine?
Yeah, on 9.2, given the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on the BAME community and the elderly, it is important these factors are considered in all aspects of the plan, particularly health and social care, but also in areas like leisure and communities.
Neil, do you want to come in and comment on them too before?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. Councillor Giles, yeah, you're quite right. What we need to make sure we, as an authority, whenever we're looking at reviewing our services or making any changes, we always make sure we do robust equality impact assessments. And I think clearly what's been highlighted over recent weeks is making sure that we're aware of that impact and that we're doing that as strenuously as we can to make sure that any decisions that we make adequately address and consider those factors as well. So yeah, I think we've got a good process in place for our cabinet reports and our proposals, but we'll make sure that that is part of the robust development of those proposals as well.
Thanks for answering that, Neil. I've just got a couple of things I wanted to obviously comment on. Obviously, this is a pandemic that I think there's no book out there what tells you how to react, how to cope, and how to deal with something like this. And a credit to the council for stepping up and dealing with this pandemic in the way that you have. Obviously, I mean, you can't get everything right all the while, but a credit where you have got the things right. And I mean, when you're dealing with something like this, you can't please everybody. And I mean, I want to thank every member of the council for contributing and helping us deal with this. But the first thing I want to obviously ask is in the recovery stage, when are we planning on having full council meetings? Is that something that somebody could comment on here, whether that's David or whether that's Neil? David, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so I think I was going to invite Sergit to comment on the ability to undertake full council, because as I understand it, the LGA has recently released council's view on whether or not local authorities should be engaging in full council meetings other than remote full council. So Sergit, would you be able to comment on the council's advice, please?
Yes, sure. The Chair, just through you, the position is that Council has advised on the regulations in relation to remote committees and coronavirus adjustments and arrangements. In short, Council has advised that gatherings of more than 2 should be avoided, and members effectively gathering for the purposes of such meetings would not be consistent with the regulations unless there was good reason for those meetings to take place. And because we do have the benefit of remote committee meetings, you would expect those meetings to now be held remotely. And so there's no restriction in full council meeting. The real issue is going to be the practicalities of full council being able to meet. And some councils are looking at, and some have indeed held full council meetings where the need has arisen. The benefit that we do have is obviously in our constitutional arrangements, we do have the emergency committee, which has the ability to deal with council business and council side functions and matters. And so other councils don't necessarily have that benefit as such. But one of the issues that some councils have encountered, and this will be the case for us as well, is the practicalities of trying to hold a full council meeting with so many members, and enabling that meeting to run effectively. We'll need to give some thought to the number of items that we hold or have in relation to council, and ensure that members are able to obviously engage in full council meetings when we decide to have one. So at the moment, a number of councils are exploring full council meetings tentatively. We are in contact with them. I have regular meetings with my opposite numbers with regional MOs. And one of the issues that we do look at is how remote committees are being worked and applied in the respective councils in the neighbourhood. And one of the areas that we are looking at is obviously how they are managing those who are having full council, managing those meetings, and so that we can learn the lessons as well, so that when we do have full council, we're able to obviously run them as efficiently and as effectively as we can.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's just obviously a couple of comments that I'd like to raise on the back of that. Is obviously one, Parliament meeting quite regular, and I know there's probably not as many as normal in there, but whether we could look at the chamber's quite a big open space when you start opening up the annexes, and whether we could facilitate something like an hybrid system where some people not shielding could attend, and then we could obviously have some dialing in. I know there's a number of councils who have had full council meetings, which allows the debate and the checks and balances and the be able for all members to vote and have a democratic rights. You know what I mean? We're all elected members, and I think we should all have a say in the business going forward as soon as we possibly can. Obviously, we have to take into consideration the welfare of individuals, and we don't want to put staff at risk where we don't need to. And then the other thing is obviously IT problems. I know obviously we've kind of steamrolled into virtual meetings because we've had to. I know it was something that, the way technology is going, it would have come sooner, but at the moment we're obviously playing catch up. Is there any possibility of an update on IT facilities, and we're getting to the stage where all members can participate in virtual meetings to help the recovery stage?
Yeah, certainly. Just taking the first item around hybrid meetings, Peter Oldham specifically addressed this in his advice, which was commissioned by the LGA, and his advice was that it's under the regulations as they're drafted, hybrid committees and meetings of council would not be consistent with the provisions of the regulations. And so if we are going to hold full council meetings, it would need to be full remote council meetings. And MACLG have been contacted in relation to this matter, and the issue has in fact been raised in the House of Lords by Lord Porter, I understand, and a request made that the regulations be amended to enable hybrid meetings to take place, whereby there can be some members in attendance physically and others then remoting into meetings. But as it stands today, we would have to have full remote meetings of full council in order to be compliant with the regulations. With regards to ICT and members, we've identified approximately 30 members who do require new kits, and that has and we have taken steps to acquire that kit, and IT are on board in making sure that the kit is available for members, and we're in the process of rolling that out to the 30 members or so that are affected, maybe slightly less than that now, so that all members will have access to committee meetings and be able to remote in as required. So we're anticipating full access being permitted to all members, and we do ask all members to keep us advised of any technical issues that they do encounter with any kit that they have, to ensure that they do have access to committee meetings when required. The key issue is legally in relation to access. As long as we are quorate and the remote committee arrangements enables us to be more flexibly more quorate, then decision making by the committee, council, cabinet, for example, would be of course legal. But I fully appreciate members wanting to engage need to have the opportunity to do so. But we are working with them through member services to ensure they do have access as required.
Do we have some kind of timetable or some kind of plan that we are, looking and striding to achieve, where we could have a full council meeting via remote access? Is there a timetable in place for that?
As it stands, we haven't got a specific time, but the autumn was being considered as the period of time that we would look to have full council meeting, unless of course there was a particular need for one to be called sooner. And the reason for that is, one, to address and ensure members fully are up to speed and feel comfortable and confident in using the technology that we have and the kit that we provide them, but also have had the opportunity to engage in a few committee meetings between now and then and feel, as I say, confident in using the facility. And it also supports chairs and others who hopefully then have the benefit of a number of meetings to be able to chair those meetings. And we can test the system to ensure that when we do have a fairly large meeting, and clearly council will be the largest meeting that we would have, we've been able to test and ensure that we've mitigated as many of the issues that could arise to ensure that it's as effective as it can be. So there's no restriction in terms of when we call full council, but it's a conscious choice we're making to look at holding one maybe in autumn to enable us to actually put in place all the necessary arrangements and ensure we can work with council members as well about how we deal with all of the council items on the agenda, because there's a number of matters. And that also will have an impact on how long the meeting is, and depending on what we take to full council, we'll need to work that through. So we would like to do that with members before decisions are made as to when we call full council. But as I say, we're very much guided by members and members' appetite for full council to be called.
Obviously, when members have got the appetite for it, I'll probably speak for a small bunch, but I like to get involved and and get things back to normal and full council up and running next month if possible. But I understand there's obviously challenges, and we'll look at the bigger picture. But I have been talking to a lot of friends of mine across the country who are councillors across London and places like that, and they are holding full council meetings, and I mean they seem to have got it sussed over there, especially in Lambeth. I don't know whether I mean you've spoke to anybody over there, but I mean thanks for the work that you're doing, and I know it's not an easy job to do. But the other thing I wanted to ask, and this is probably a question to David, obviously at the moment with people working from home, because obviously we can't share desks, so a lot of members of staff have had to work from home but still delivering a good service, and I mean still doing a lot of work there, and probably I mean they probably do more work at home because there's no switching on and off, there's no clocking in and out, so it's probably more efficient. Is that something that we could look at probably long term? So obviously we free building space up, and we could probably, I mean, not have so many council buildings to save some money. Is that something that we're looking at?
I think that's a really good observation, Councillor. That's something we are absolutely looking at. We are working with our facilities team to work out what we can safely open up, and I think that in terms of the council house, for example, the view is that short of a vaccine or short of changes in the rules, we'll only be able to accommodate about 20% of the workforce back into this particular building than we could prior to the disease. So longer term, working with staff and with the unions, our aim would be to explore remote and home working for the future.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. Just the other question I wanted to raise is town halls, obviously, where people pay their the council rent and obviously the council bills. When are we looking at, obviously, I mean, I know we can't go and open the doors tomorrow, but when are we giving people an option to go to somewhere and pay cash? Because I mean, there's a lot of elderly people out there who probably don't use the internet, they don't pay over the phone, and they'd like to walk in somewhere and give somebody the cash. Is that something that we're looking at to obviously help the financial state of the council, and obviously try and not allow people to get into arrears, so we can probably help them stop getting into debt?
Again, Councillor, that's a really good point. Yes, we've had a number of conversations about what the art of the possible is. Neil, do you want to update on that?
Yeah, certainly. It was actually a conversation we were having today, exactly the point you were making there, Councillor Giles. So I think, as with all of our buildings and all of our services about people coming into offices, we have to go through a stepped process where we make sure that we've carried out the right risk assessments, we've put the right signage and floor markings down in places so that people, if they are coming into the building, are aware of the provisions that we've got in place, and that they're safe and they're appropriate for staff. So we've got quite a complex process that managers are aware of now, where we get health and safety sign off, trade union sign off, and we've then got a briefing for staff before we bring them back into buildings. So that seems to be working really well. In terms of the point around cash payments, that is one of the areas that we've got to look at, how we reopen those services as quickly as possible. One of the things that I think we need to make sure we communicate to members of the public is where there are alternative options available. So people can still make payments at post offices as well, and I know a number of our post offices have started to reopen. So at the same time as looking at our own reopening plans and getting those in place as soon as possible, and hopefully that won't be too long, also making sure that people know all the different provisions that are available around them. So we'll be doing something really soon on that and making sure that we communicate that out, because you're quite right, there's a number of people who deal in cash, they feel more comfortable with that, and we need to make sure that they've got that facility available to them as well. So hopefully very soon.
Thanks for that, Neil. I know people are probably fed up with the sound of my voice on this meeting, but I just want to say a big thanks to all members of staff, and I know the IT team. They've, contacted me today on a couple of issues that I've got when I'm accessing stuff remotely from probably not at home. And they're doing a fantastic job, and a credit to the council. We'll probably there's obviously no motions or anything to put on this item. I just want to check with Rajbir and Elaine to make sure they have no other questions or any observations and comments they wanted to make before we move on to the next item.
I'm fine.
Elaine? Are you there, Elaine? I think the silence says everything. Is waving. Are you okay there?
Yeah, I've had a couple of hiccups, but no questions.
Okay, all right. Thanks, and hopefully we'll sort IT, and we'll. Every time we meet and we probably have discussions like this, it will improve. So we're going to move on to item number 6. I just want to say thank you for Neil for presenting that, and thanks for David and Sergi for coming in on the questions. Thank you very much. So item number 6, the Cabinet Forward Plan. This item is just for information purposes only. Does anybody have any comments that they would like to raise at this stage? I'm going to start with Elaine. Have you got any comments on the forward plan? I don't know if she's got some technical issues there. So I'll move to. Are you there? Yeah. Not at the moment. Rajbir, have you got any comments on the forward plan?
Thank you, Chair. No, I haven't got any question or any comment. Thank you.
Okay. I just obviously have got a comment, and whether David could probably come in off the back of this. Obviously, the forward plan was set quite some time before this pandemic, and the whole world has changed. And I don't think after this pandemic, what we class as normal life will we ever get back to. But obviously the forward plan would have to be re-looked at. Is that something that you're looking at, and you're changing the forward plan as we go along to meet the demands that we are up against coming out of this pandemic?
I think we'd absolutely want to work with Scrutiny to look at the forward plan going forward, because you are correct. Obviously, the world has changed. The way we do things will be very different in the future. You've already highlighted concerns over budget pressures and the issues that will create. And so I think there will be different sets of focuses moving forward, and we would welcome Scrutiny's views on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to contribute to the way forward.
Thanks for that, David. And Scrutiny are more than willing to obviously work alongside anybody to help improve the services and help improve the way that we go forward. And obviously at the moment we've got a few we've got Paul Moore, who's currently unwell. Hopefully he gets back to health, and he's getting involved a bit more, because he has a lot to bring, but wherever we can. And I'd like Scrutiny to probably step up a lot more now and meet more regular. With Microsoft Teams and the way we're meeting now virtually, it's probably more easier now to meet than ever. So I think we've got a meeting within 2 weeks, and obviously wherever we need to bring anything to Scrutiny, then bring it, and we will obviously work alongside you. Obviously there's no notes there to take. I want to thank everybody for participating in this meeting, and hopefully going forward we'll have lots of more Scrutiny meetings, and I'll see you all. I say see you all soon. I'll see your pictures on the screen. But all keep well, keep safe, and on that note I want to close the meeting. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Have we stopped recording, Suki?